What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Today, I want to talk to you about Nemo, Roses of Berlin. This is the second in the Nemo spin-off trilogy from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comics. This is written by Alan Moore with art by Kevin O'Neill. And the story here, this is sometime in the late 30s, early 40s. I don't think there's a date given here. Captain Nemo, Jenny Dakar, her daughter with Broad Arrow Jack is kidnapped by the Germans. And so Nemo and Jack, they have to go to Metropolis from the silent film Metropolis to rescue their daughter. And it's a pretty straightforward story. I would say one of the most straightforward stories. With just about all of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comics, I feel like I have to go to the Jess Nevins annotations that have been up since the late 90s when the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comics first started, and I feel like I have to read a panel, look at the annotation, read a panel, look at the annotation. Sometimes I feel like the references in these comics are so oblique, so over my head, that I am missing out on fundamental parts of the story because I don't understand who this character is or what they're referencing. There are a lot of pieces of fiction that this crew likes to reference in these comics, and a lot of times I feel like me being fairly uncultured, I don't understand the comic because I don't understand what is being referenced. And here, while there are things being referenced, and a lot of it is stuff that I have not read or seen, I still felt like I was able to understand the comic, and that's a good thing. This references, like I said, the silent film Metropolis, which is the only thing that's being referenced here that I have seen. This also references The Great Dictator, which is a Charlie Chaplin movie. This references the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The character Dr. Mabuse is in this, and a lot of this was referenced lightly in the Black Dossier with the characters in, I don't remember what the German phrase was, but the Heroes of Twilight, I think. And so if you've already read the Black Dossier and a lot of that is still kind of fresh on your mind, then you're probably going to be able to understand this story pretty well. You'll get into it and you'll say, hey, I think I remember these characters being referenced in that one part in the Black Dossier. But basically, this is just a cut and dry rescue attempt, and I like that. Now, I will say quite a bit of this is in German because it is a World War II era story, and there are significant portions that feature characters who would only be speaking German in that scenario. And so, like I said, I had the Jess Nevins annotations open, even though this might be one of the only stories where I probably didn't need the annotations. I still had those at the ready, and in the case of the German stuff here, it was already translated in those annotations, and that was handy for me. This kind of reminds me of mid to late 2000s X-Men comics with the character Dupe, and anytime Dupe shows up, I feel obligated to try and translate whatever it is that he's saying, and if it's one panel, that's fine, but if it's multiple pages of Dupe saying stuff, I get frustrated because it takes like 2 or 3 minutes to translate one speech balloon of Dupe using the Dupe English translation key, whereas with the German language, you can just go to Google Translate and you can type whatever it is that's being said, and it does the translation for you. So even if you don't want to go to the Jess Nevins annotations, you can still pretty quickly type up the stuff here, although it's already been translated, so it would be easier to just go to the annotations. But I didn't really try reading this without the translations. I'm curious if I handed this to someone and said, you are forbidden from using the computer and translating any of this, to see how well does this story work if you don't know what's being said by these characters. Because it's really just a few pages here and there where characters are speaking German to each other, and in some cases I feel like you don't really need to know. It's kind of like watching a war film where someone will say, you know, Mach Snell, and in context you can kind of figure out what they're saying. In some cases that's what it is, but then like the very first page is all in German, and so I felt like, okay, I probably need to figure out what they're saying here, see if it has anything to do with the story. But anyway, that wasn't too big of an obstacle for me with the annotations, having the translations there anyway. But I like this story. Visually, I thought this was very interesting. We get to see a very unique look for the world of the League, because up until this point, we hadn't really seen a whole lot of the I guess the cityscape of this world. In the first 2 volumes, it's Victorian England, and so you don't get a whole lot of the buildings and stuff. It's mostly out in the countryside or at an inn out in the middle of nowhere. And then in the Black Dossier, it is set in the middle of the 1950s in England, but then a lot of it is set out in the middle of the countryside because Alan and Mina are trying to get to a remote location to get away from the people who are pursuing them. And so this is set in this futuristic looking city, and it's very new and interesting, and it's something we hadn't really seen a whole lot up until this point. And I liked it. Kevin O'Neill really got a chance to play here, and so I will continue talking about this with the final installment of the Nemo trilogy next week, but that's all that I have for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and in the meantime, I will catch you guys in the future. Have a good one.